travels all over the world to many different tribes to really clear out my physical system, actually, in the first place, because like the ayahuasca and the mushrooms and all of these natural medicines, they are, you know, they give visions, but what they actually do in essence is clear your body from toxins. So as soon as my channel was cleared, I started to get a lot of clarity. And it actually just came through me without me thinking about what can I do, what can I plan, what can I organize in order to create something that's beneficial for the whole. It literally came through me and I couldn't stop it. So it started when I was about 25, now I'm 36, so that was like 11 years ago. That I just, for the first time in my life, I just really prayed, you know, like really the essence of it. And I fully surrendered my soul to the all, to the unknown. And I prayed and I was like, I want to be in service to clear, to assist the harmony, the love on this planet, because I don't know what to do. My ego doesn't know what to do. My personality doesn't know what to do. And I honestly, I even said, like, I don't even know how to be here on this planet if I cannot be in service, because it's, you know, it's a lot, you know, and I couldn't look at it anymore. So I was just in very deep prayer and surrender. I want to be in service, and just tell me what to do. Whatever it is, I am your servant. And then literally, as I made that prayer, about 5 minutes later, I stood up, and it was late in the evening that I did that prayer. It was like 9, 10 in the evening. And suddenly I got up and I went to my desk and I took some papers and a liner and a compass and everything. And I just started drawing all these codes. And I've been drawing my whole life. Yeah. And I was always pretty good at it. I was more like drawing like photographic, you know, images, and, you know, more like shape, like, yeah, real life things. So I had never done anything of sacred geometry or the dotting that you see in the codes that I make, all those little dots. Like, I never did that before. And suddenly I just started drawing all these codes, and paper after paper after paper, and it was just the whole night through. And I had to work the next day, so it was like, it was weird. It just kept coming and I couldn't stop it. And then as I was drawing, I got these messages of like, yeah, look up on Google sacred geometry. And I was like, oh, sacred geometry, never heard of that. And then I looked it up and was like, oh, okay, you know, those are the same shapes that I'm drawing here, you know. And then it said like, oh, look up crop circles, you know. And I never really believed in that, but then I looked up crop circles, and then there were exactly the same shapes that I was drawing were already crop circles that had been coming through. So I was just surprised. And then yeah, then a week later, then I had, so that was after I had my first big epiphany, let's say, with my very first natural medicine ceremony, that really pulled me into my center. And that was 6 months after that happened. I started drawing those codes. And then after that, I went deep into working with Mother Ayahuasca for 5 years straight. I did that very deeply and a lot and in many different places. And I also went to the source in Peru, working with the Shipibo. And as I was doing that, I was clearing out myself. And each time I cleared something out, more information came through of what these codes actually are and what the potency of these codes is. Because in the beginning, to be really honest, in the beginning, I was like, oh, this is nice art, you know, like I just was like, oh, you know, and the dots and the shapes, and it's fun to do, you know, and people like it. And I also started tattooing at that time, and they were like, oh, these are nice tattoos. I want to have a tattoo from you. And I started tattooing them. And in the beginning, I was very like, just thinking that I was just a good artist, that people liked my art, and that was it, you know. But then I started to, I lived in an ayahuasca center for about a year in Holland. And I was serving ceremonies, assisting in the ceremonies every weekend, two ceremonies every weekend. And in the week, I was living there, helping with the community and tattooing. And then I started using the codes for tattoos, and I noticed that automatically I started channeling as I was tattooing the codes. And the person that was receiving the tattoo, they also started experiencing a lot of things as if they were in an ayahuasca ceremony. And they started getting a lot of information through each dot that I was putting in the code. And so I had been tattooing for about 6, 7, 8 years. And each ceremony that I did, I realized deeper how potent these codes are, not only when you put them on the skin, but also if you just look at them. And I've literally seen people, one of the stories is that there was this man when I was in Bali. I designed a tattoo with the code for his leg, for his right leg. And as we were doing this, we started the ceremony, I had to put the stencil on the leg. And then I noticed it's really difficult to make that straight. I wonder what's happening. And then he said yeah, my leg is actually not straight. He had a bit of an O leg, how do you say that in English? Like the knee was a bit pushed out like this. And then I looked and I was like, oh yeah, exactly. Like your right leg is just not straight. And he was like, yeah, I've had this since a baby. I was born a bit difficult, and it just never got straight again. And I was like, okay, no problem. We'll just make an optical illusion that it looks straight and it fits. And then I just put it on there. And then we did the tattoo for about 10 hours. We were tattooing. And after 10 hours, he was just, first of all, he was in total bliss, and then he stood up and we look at his leg and it was straight. Things like that happen. And, also more subtle things like people just improving their lives, finding deeper self-love, finding more abundance in their lives on all levels. But of course, us as human beings being so used to the physical experience, if something physical happens, then that's more known as a miracle, So that's why I say that particular story. So yeah, I was on tattooing a lot and learning with each ceremony more about the codes, with each natural medicine ceremony that I did. I also received more information. And then I started learning that the codes are, as I'm sure that all of you know, if you look through the physical reality, there is a field, like a blueprint of the universe where everything exists from, right? So many people see this as the flower of life pattern that's everywhere. But in that flower of life pattern, there's also way more detailed, tiny little codes of everything that is. Every emotion, every thought, every material thing, every person, every soul has all different key codes, blueprints. So that's why I call it genetic key codes, because it literally builds up your genetics and who you are and how you express yourself and your voice, and just literally everything has a specific code. And then I learned that when you look at a key code, so a key code is something that unlocks a potential. Yeah, it is not just a code, it is something that opens up awareness. So then I learned that there are personal key codes, but there's also collective key codes that each and every person, every human being carries in the same way. Sorry, there's people coming in here and I'm trying to do two things at the same time. Sorry. Okay. So there's personal blueprints of what makes you you, of what makes you unique, of what makes you authentic. But there's collective key codes that makes us human beings, and it makes us able to see each other and connect with each other and co-create with each other. Yeah. And so at a certain point, and this was after I finally went to the source of the natural medicines, and I did a 3-month dieta with a very beautiful maestra in Peru, in Pucallpa. And that was so beautiful. It was really like completely away from the world, no internet, no electricity, just tiny little tambo for 3 months. And the only person that I saw was my maestra coming in to give a blessing and to give my medicine, you know. And that's where I really had the full rebirth and the full realization of what is my channel and what is influencing that channel. So that's where I was able to tap in to the higher purity of my soul, of my mission. And then after that, I finally started channeling the collective key codes that you see in the Academy. And those are 50 key codes. And I spent about 3 years channeling those. And as I was channeling them, because in the beginning, I didn't know that I was channeling a course. It was more, it just came through me. And I started with the first code and I was like, oh, this is interesting. You know, I never drew it this way. And then this language started coming in with it. Before I only did the structure, the drawing itself, but now the language started coming through. And I was feeling it when I was channeling. I was like, whoa, this is a whole new level of channeling. And this is interesting. So I drew one code in 3 days. I was like, okay, now I feel like drawing a new one. And then I drew a new one. And it kind of looked the same, but a little bit different. And I was like, oh, and then every 3 days I wanted to draw a new code. And I was so in that flow. And then I noticed after like the 5th code or something, I was like, oh, this is supposed to be a sequence. And then I started channeling like, this is the sequence for the collective key codes for the spiritual body. And then because as with each codes in those 3 days that I was channeling, it was always exactly 3 days for the first 11 codes of the spiritual body. And as I was channeling them, I was going through all these processes and realizations, and I was writing it down. I was guided to write it all down. And then I just realized like, wow, this is a sequence that when people follow it step by step, they come to the end, the realization of the unity of spirit in the here and now, their unique, authentic spirit in the here and now. And then I thought, oh, this is it, you know, this is the course. And then a little break happened, about a month or so, or I don't know how long it was. I honestly, time in that period when I was channeling is I don't remember anything about it anymore, but some time went by and then suddenly I felt like, oh, there's this new inspired code that wants to come through, and it had a different base structure. And then I drew the first one, and I thought, oh, this is just going to be one code. But then it was like, no, this is going to be the emotional sequence. And then 12 codes came through. And again, it was like every 3 days, a new code, boom, 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 and me going through processes and crying every day because it was the emotional sequence and it's based on the water body. So it was very deep and intense. And then I started realizing, no, this is going to be a whole sequence that goes through all the bodies. So spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, and then finally ethereal, which is like the completion of realizing all the 4 bodies, because humanity has been living up until now in a mentality of, you know, there's my spiritual body, there's my emotional body, there's my mental body, there's my physical body, and they're connected, but they're still kind of separated from each other, right? And in the diamond consciousness, it's the realization that all those bodies are one and the same. And that when you allow them to embody all in the here and now, then you are in balance, then you are in your own mastery, and then you are a conscious co-creator within the whole. Because then you realize, you know, that you're not God who rules everything, but at the same time you are the creator of the all that is, and at the same time the all that is creating you. But you're very conscious of that balance, and so you can co-create with the universe to create a more harmonious whole, you see. So yeah, it took me about 3 years to channel all those codes, because I started in 2016, and I think the first group that I did in the academy was, yeah, like two and a half years ago, I think. When did we start, Karen? 2.5 years ago, right? Yeah. Karen was, that you see here, she was in the first circle. And then, yeah, even still, as I was doing the academy, more realizations came through, and it's been, you know, a really beautiful journey to realize what effect that these codes actually have on people. Because how I started to realize that was that when I was in Bali channeling the first sequence, and when I didn't fully realize yet that this was going to be a whole course, I was living in this beautiful little community space, and there was this person. I was drawing on my desk, and like all the rooms were kind of open, everybody just went everywhere a little bit. So suddenly there was this person standing next to me and he was like looking at my code and what I was drawing, and I had already drawn like 3, I think, and he just glanced for a second on the codes, and he literally just ran away screaming, scared as hell. And he was like, what is this that you're doing? Like, you know, and he had just had his first ayahuasca ceremony the day before or something, so he was a little bit ungrounded, so he probably felt the potency of it or something. But he was like what is it that you're doing, you know? And then a few days later, I met a friend at the juice bar, and we met there, and we talked for a few hours, and I was like, I had the drawings on my phone. I was like, look, this is what I've been drawing lately, like, what do you think of it? And I show her one code, and she looks at it, and suddenly she's just glued to the phone, and for an hour she looks at it, and she was just crying. And I couldn't get out of her, like, what's happening? I just had to give her space and let her go through it. And after an hour, she was like, oh my God, like, just looking at that, it just gave me so much like release, like something started happening inside of me. And I just had to cry it out, and now I feel so much better, you know? And it's not that everybody feels that when they look at the codes. It really depends on where you are, you know, how you deal with your processes and your authentic, unique being. You know, some people are just more expressive, more emotional when they're processing. So I've also had people who don't give a kick about anything, but then when they go through it, or when they go through the academy, they're like, oh yeah, I don't feel anything, you know, and everything just goes easy. But then at the end of the course, they look back at the life they had before, and they're like, wow, my whole world changed. I changed. And I look at life so much differently, and in so much more balance. And like situations that I had in the past that were very emotional or disturbing, like now, if I have the same situation, it doesn't really take me out of my balance anymore as much. You know, I'm able to just objectively look at it and just find a way to solve the situation for the highest benefit of all that is, you know. So when you raise your consciousness, it's not that everything is suddenly going to be roses and moonshine and rainbows and butterflies, you know, the same things still happen, but it's how you look at it, how you perceive it, how you react to it, and how you let it affect your life. That's what changes. And that's where the key codes assist you in. And, you know, we recently had a talk with Susanna. I had a beautiful session the other day, and we were talking about that. And that's like, you know, as you're rising in your consciousness, suddenly there's this layer that's like, okay, now, because you've been clearing your karma and going through all these things and having so many experiences and life lessons and wisdoms coming through, but then there's suddenly this layer of like, okay, I know that there's a next level, but there's practically nothing in this planet that shows me how to break through that, you know. And I have this feeling inside of me that if I do, I'm gonna go crazy, you know, or there's something it's just like, oh my God, how am I gonna do that, you know? And that's where the key codes come in. And that's why the Academy is also, it's not to be discriminating or judgmental to anybody, but there is, you know, you have to be at a certain level to be able to enter the Academy. And it is for everybody's protection, for everybody's well-being that I'm doing this, because when you're not ready, you know, and I had this experience when I did my first circle in the Academy, I didn't have such a strong barrier of like who can enter and who not. And I had some people that, you know, were very enthusiastic in the beginning and they really wanted to enter. And I thought, oh, this is a nice person, so sure, join the circle. But then they, in essence, they weren't ready to let go, to really let go, to really surrender. And then it happened that they just left out of themselves in the middle of the course, or, you know, some arguments happened between other students. And it was just, I had to, you know, that's how I learned, like, okay, I want this to be for everybody. I want everybody to join. Like, that's truly what I want, but I have to be discerning, like, not many people can actually do this, you know. So yeah, and it's also for you that when you are ready, and I believe that everybody who's here is ready, otherwise you wouldn't be here, because I did a prayer also the whole week, you know, like, people who are ready, let them be there. That for you, you know, to make that investment, to make that commitment to the Academy, if you're ready, you will be able to get so much more out of it than if you're just not ready. You know, even if that's just that one last step, if you step into it, of course, the codes are going to do something with you because they work for everybody, but they're not really going to pull you through that layer that I said and really pop into that bliss and that embodiment. See? So it's for everybody, for everybody's best interest that yeah, that how do you say that yeah, that border is there, you know what I mean. So yeah, and we are starting a new circle this July, and I'm going to give the circle myself. Last circle, it was one of the graduates that did it, but things have been shifting and moving, and I just felt inspired to do it myself this July. And as I said it to already many people, like, everybody's like, you know, because it does make sense, you know, and I'm also just learning how to do this in the best way, because, you know, business and stuff is not my strongest side. Like, I'm just very creative and channeling, and when it comes to organizing things in the human world, I kind of need some assistance or just experiences, you know, learning from experience. So so yeah, but it does make sense to me too, of course, that you want to learn with the source, you know. That's what I also always want. So in that sense, I'm going to start the circle in July, and it's 6 months course, but it is a lifelong life. Can't really say it differently. It's you step in and it's like a 6-month course of going through all the codes, but then you stay in it. And also in the academy, it's also open for everybody who's ever been in the academy to keep coming to the satsang and to keep weaving. You know, it's actually an online community, world community, that I want to create to anchor in the diamond grid. And the diamond grid, you could say, like, it is because you have the Christ consciousness grid, which is illumination, and then you have the diamond grid, which is just one layer further, which is the enlightenment. Yeah. And so also when I was channeling the codes in the beginning, you know, diamond consciousness, it just came to me. It's not something that I read somewhere. I also tried to look it up, diamond consciousness, why am I hearing this? But there's very, very little, there's a very few people that talk about it. But Spirit was very firm with me in saying, like, no, you have to call it diamond consciousness. But actually it is enlightenment, but I think it asked me to call diamond consciousness because enlightenment is such a very much used term that's easily misinterpreted or something. Or so in that sense, the diamond is also, you know, how a diamond is formed. The diamond is one of the hardest, or the hardest material on the planet, on Earth, in physical. And it is formed through carbon that is immensely pressured and heated, and then the diamond gets shaped. So in that way, you can see it the same way that you as a human being, as a soul, you're being pressured by the karmic experiences, and then you make that choice of, oh, I can free myself from this, you know, because the karmic field, it is an existing field, but it's also in the past. It's not, you don't have to be in it, you know. About 20, I think right now, around 25 years ago or something, the karmic field actually has been released from the human consciousness field. But the reason why it still exists is because so many people think it's still real and necessary in order to live through your life and to learn the lessons. And because they believe in it, and because what you create with what you think is what you create, that's why they keep experiencing it. But with the diamond consciousness that's now activated on the planet, it is possible to actually make that sovereign decision and become a sovereign soul that sees the karmic field, but also sees the field of observance, you know, and freedom and sovereignty. And so the codes are created to get into that field, to really make that jump. Yeah, it doesn't mean that you will leave the earth or not be able to connect with other humans anymore. It will just be like your interaction will change and how it will affect you will change. Yeah. And so when I was channeling the codes in the beginning, so I got through, okay, you need to call it diamond consciousness. And then I also got through that in the period between 2035, 2038, somewhere there will be a huge shift taking place of human consciousness. It's already taking place now, as we can all feel and see and experience in whatever is going on in the world right now. That's all because human consciousness is shifting, that all these things are taking place. But 2035, 2038, then we have the potential, yeah, as humanity, to actually anchor in that higher level of consciousness. To really, instead of the Christ grid that's now activated around the planets, to actually activate the diamond grid. So you can see it kind of like, now the Christ grid is activated, and everybody's channel, whether they're conscious of it or not, is automatically attached to that grid. You can see like a light grid around the earth and like a light line as the channel of every single soul, and they're all tapped into that Christ grid. But if we put our focus on raising that consciousness to the diamond grid, once there are, you know, and this is the pattern in this universe that we live in, because I work a lot with the 144,000 code, which you also know from, you know, there's stories in the Bible and stuff, and it was part of the channeling that, because 144,000, if you look at it numerologically, 144 is 12 times 12, right? And 12 stands for the one that comes into balance, the one that goes into two, the one that finds the balance within itself. So 12 times 12 is finding the ultimate balance within the all. And then 1000 is the one that goes into the Holy Trinity, the 0 point field. So it's the ultimate balance going into the 0 point field through the Holy Trinity and rebirthing itself. So it's the rebirth of consciousness is actually the code of 144,000. So the channeling was that when 144,000 people on some level in their body tap into the diamond grid, then poof, automatically that will be activated. Christ grid will dissolve, and everybody's channel, whether they are conscious about it or not, will be tapped into the diamond grid. And then the ones who haven't gone through the processes will start their processes in that way, conscious or unconscious, see? And so the Academy is here to plant those seeds, to connect with people all over the world, to do that work for yourself, you know, to free yourself, to become more sovereign, to become more self-empowered, to feel that bliss and abundance flowing through you, because that's what you will get when you are in that connection with the diamond grid, but also to be in service to the collective automatically. And it's not about that you will be doing things for other people and you will be focusing on other people. It's simply doing your own inner process, your inner divine union process. And that in itself is the most powerful thing that you can do for the collective. So as you go in a group through the codes, every code that you do, even if it's just a group of 4 people, every code that we go through, we are doing that. We're anchoring that in deeper in the collective field. See? Yeah, so I'm very excited to start this group in July. And we already have 2 beautiful assistants and 2 beautiful new students. My mom is going to join as well. She's here too. And yeah, I feel I have some space now to answer some questions. I feel that's what needs to happen now. So you can just unmute yourself and
I have 2 questions. Hello. Hi. Nice to meet you.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for the story. It's really impressive. And I know like there is a reason I'm here. I don't know why yet, but we will figure out. I have 2 questions. One is, you mentioned the frequencies and stuff, right? So in these key codes, do you have a bit more details or like technical details on that frequency, how it works? Like, is it similar to sound or vibration, or is it another level? I don't know too much about it. And the second is like during the process, during that 6 months, I think every individual will have their own experience, but shall we expect like more shadow work, or is it like more light? You know, I think you answered it already, like it depends on everyone, but I'm just wondering what the process is. Like, is it easy to stay grounded, or is it like more all over the place? Is it easy to kind of continue to your life? You know, like what kind of changes you experienced before in the academy?
Good questions. Yeah, so the first How they work, it's indeed like you would have a sound activation, sound bowl healing or something. But they just, you know, this, because everything has sound, color has sound, you know. So the sound is just not hearable by the human ears, not like we're used to, but it does send out a vibration. And I calibrated it at about, in the beginning, when you work with a code, it actually has a vibrational field of about 15 feet. And then the more that you work with it and interact with it, and the more that you integrate the code into your heart and really let it sink in, the wider that field grows, until you embody that code. And then wherever you go, you take that code with you. See, so also if you've gone through the course, you've embodied all the key codes, you can travel around the world and just spread the codes like that without having to say anything to people, really. So that's the beauty of that too. And then your second question, at first, also extra with the first question, is that you will have, as you go through the course, you will have the visual of the code, but you will also have a prayer, which I call diamond prayers, that you will have the lyrics from and the audio. And Florence, who is here, like, she also reflected that beautifully back to me. Like, she's just going to start the circle in July, but she's already going through the pre-course, so to say, the advancement course. When you enter the academy, you have access to the advancement course for free also. Yeah. So she already subscribed a few weeks ago, and she's going through the advancement course right now. And she said to me, like, that she prefers to read the prayers herself in her own voice, because it activates so much deeper. And that makes sense. It's like, you can listen to it, and that's one thing, but they're pretty long prayers, so you can sometimes lose, you know, attention a little bit. And when you say the prayers yourself, you have the paper and you say it out loud. For one, you say every single word, and two, the words vibrate through your system. So of course it's going to have a deeper activation like that. So you will have a prayer with it. And then there is also I call it universal mantra. Some people call it light language. I don't like calling it light language, because that speaks of light and dark, and it's neither. It's just the lightless light, you know, it's the all. So I call it universal mantras, and that was probably inspired, that came through because of my work with the Shipibo, like the Icaros that they sing. And so the mantras are actually even at a much higher vibration than the prayers. So the prayers are already pretty high vibration, but they're still human English words. And the mantras really shut off the mind, because you cannot comprehend what's being said. You have to feel it with your heart. Yeah. So the most powerful are the codes, and the mantras are at the same vibration. And so that's what you have, as that's how they work. And so you have 3 days per code, and then there's, in between each sequence, there's a 12-day integration period. And during those 3 days per code, you can watch the code in meditation, you can listen to the prayer, you can say the prayer, you can listen to the mantra, say the mantra, however you feel like it. In essence, if you just look at it once, hear it once, it's activated. But, you know, as we're all human beings with all these conditionings and layers in the mind, it's sometimes good to hear it more and listen to it more, just to break more free in yourself. Yeah. Because even if you go through the whole course once, you can keep going through it the next year and again, as many times as you want to. And as what I said before, of like, these codes give you that that possibility to break through that final layer. It's because, you know, once I explained it to someone like this, that you know about Dante and the pits of hell. Like, does everybody know about that, when he speaks about all these layers? it's kind of like, you know, when you're down there, you're in the fields of karma. And then you have people who try to heal themselves, you know, and they go through different healers and different ceremonies and things, and they just crawl up one wall and then they fall down again, and then they crawl here again. And it's like, it's really difficult to kind of feel like, which direction do I need to go? Like, what's real, what's not real, especially now with so much spirituality in the world and so much fake spirituality as well. Like, you know, and on every level, in yoga and natural medicines, and there's so much fakeness in it as well. So people easily get misguided. And it's difficult to find that straight path. And so to say it in an easy metaphor, it's like the key codes they actually built like a ladder of 50 steps, and it's a strong, solid ladder. And it starts at the bottom of the pit and it goes all the way to the top, so that you go from one homeostasis level to the next without falling down, you see? And you have to take the steps yourself, you have to crawl up yourself, but you know which next step to take. So each code is a next step in the ladder, see? And that's how you're able to, even though if you go through processes and things may come up, it's easier to just like, okay, this is just where I'm in now, and it's this code, it's this essence, and this is happening in my life, you know, because the thing is, the codes, they work on a very deep metaphysical, quantum, subtle level, and then they you know, they go into the essence, and then they start permeating out into your being, into your physical world. So everything in your life is going to start reflecting the code that you're moving through, and is going to start reflecting what is in purity with that code and what is no longer serving you as you are upgrading that code within yourself, you see? Because these codes are all already within you. You already have all those codes. Some are more activated, some are deactivated completely, you know, kind of depends who you are, what you've been going through. So every code, whether it's already activated or not yet activated, they will go to a higher level, because there's always a next level of everything. There's always a deeper essence and wisdom of everything. So even if you've gone through all the codes, you can go through it again and then be like, oh, and then that's also part of that. You know, even for me still, when I go through the codes, I'm like, oh yeah, the key code of inspiration. It's like, oh, yeah, and then that's also behind that. And there's so many layers, and it's infinite, you see? So when you're asking about like, what can we expect about the processes that we're going through, how that will look like, indeed, it's like, I cannot tell what you're going to experience, because it's your personal life, and it's for everybody different. But, you know, and I've had students who don't feel anything the entire time. Or they feel like one big thing somewhere in the middle of the process, or they have a big thing after it ends and when they're integrating the full thing, you know? And then I have other students who just like, yeah, in every sequence, they go through major upgrades, and then it reflects in their life, in their family life, with their friends, with their business, with their job, with their health, you know, with their sleeping patterns, with their everything, you see? And it's just, the more committed that you are to the process, and the more committed you are to yourself, of like, you know, I know that I'm stepping into this ascension process, and that's why it's called the Araina Academy of Ascension, because it helps you to go from one level to the other level embodied, yeah? So one homeostasis to the next. And so when you step in and you have that promise to yourself, that commitment, that oath to yourself of, I know I'm stepping into this, and I'm doing this for myself, because you have to do it for yourself in the first place. When you do it for yourself, you're automatically going to do it for the collective. So those 6 months time, it's really to focus on you, yeah? And when you do that, And when you trust the process of, okay, even though I'm going through these very hard emotional things or mental things or whatever it is, I know I just have to keep following the codes. Because you get a calendar in the beginning that says, okay, these days follow this code, these days do that code, and it's very easy, very clear to follow. And this day watch that class, you know, and this day there's a group activation, and it's very easily said how you have to follow it. And you can just keep living your daily life around it. And I would even recommend to do that, because if you keep living your daily life, you will have more interactions to actually see what's going on inside of yourself. You know, you can go for 6 months into the jungle and just be by yourself, and that would also be beautiful. But part of being part of life as you're moving through it will give you a lot of clarity about your life situation and about what should change to improve your life and everybody else's life. See. And what I've also seen is that, like, people who are in a relationship, for example, or people who have kids, that when you are going through it, because as I said before, you embody that code and then you start radiating it, everybody around you will also start getting that upgrade. Yeah. Very simple example, for example, is that I had a student, and she, you know, she had 2 kids and a husband, and she was going through the academy, and he was like, you know, I don't really understand what you're going through. All these codes look the same to me. And like, he was just like not tuned into it at all, you know, but she was really devoted to it and she was going through it. And then, for example, she was growing emotionally, but she was also like purifying her diet, you know, because the more that you embody the essence of the all, the less that you need something to fill yourself up. So if you've heard of the concept of breatharian, that's also something that the codes will activate within you if that's what you feel is your life spot. Yeah. So this particular student, like, she started to eat, you know, less and less and more healthy and more raw foods and juices and just up. And while her family was still eating, you know, fries and chicken and, you know, all of these things. But then she saw that without saying anything about it, that they started to eat more lighter too, and have more conscious decisions about their health, you know. And it even came so far that eventually her husband, because they broke up because they were already breaking up before the academy, so it just gave her the clarity to really do that in ease and grace, because they're still good friends and it's beautiful how they ended it. But eventually he even started the academy too. And he was completely against it. You know, in the beginning he was like, I don't understand anything about this spiritual woo-woo, you know. And then he joined the academy, and then he even met his new wife that he's now having a child with in the academy, another student. So that is so beautiful to see, you know. And that is how, you know, that's what I mean with like all these human situations and these, you know, stories that we experience. The codes, they help you to just like observe and, you know, resolve things in ease and grace, you know, because usually if a situation like that would happen, it's like, I'm divorcing you, I never want to see you again, I'm taking the kids, and you know, like that's how humans are usually. And now they both have a new partner and they still have like double dates and the kids play together, and it's like, it's beautiful, it's amazing, you know. So yeah, does that answer your questions? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Beautiful. Anybody have more or something to share or questions? Yeah.
Hello, can I have a question?
Yes.
Can we use the codes for people while we are studying it, and when we finish? I mean, how can we use them to heal people or help people?
Yes. Good question. So the thing is, and this is also something that I had to really learn through experience, is that there's different sequences. So spiritual, emotional, mental, physical, ethereal. And as you see, if you've gone through my website and if you've seen the products there, you see that there's different kinds of key codes. I don't know if it's so clear on the website, but there's only a few codes, like the core key codes, the overseeing key codes of the specific bodies, because you always have a sequence and then an overseeing key code for that sequence that like holds space for it. Those overseeing key codes are on the website. Those are, harmless for everybody, to say it like that. All the key codes are in essence, but some of the codes, especially the second sequence and the third sequence, because you start off and it like every sequence, it goes deeper and deeper inward. So I had to decide to not bring the second and the third out to the public. And especially not the prayers and the mantras, because it's just, for some people, it's just too much, And that's why you see on the website, I do have some of the spiritual codes. I have some of the physical codes, and the last, the ethereal codes, but they're without the mantra, without the prayer. And it's really just guided by, okay, now the world needs more of this specific code. So then I bring it out, and I can always like stop that production as well. Like it's very intentional that I do that. And so when you're asking like, how can we work with these codes for other people? You can use those core key codes and the ones that you see on the website. But it's also to realize that, it really also depends on who you're working with, on what level is that person, and also when you're going through the course, you'll be able to tune in deeper and deeper to really feel where someone is at and if they're capable to work with that frequency. And it's also to realize that the code is within you already. So whatever you do, whether it is, because at the end of the course, you get the card deck and you'll be able to give key code readings as well. So you can do that, but anything you do, whether you are a musician or a chef or a carpenter, whatever it is that you do, you can put that essence into it. Yeah. And also you learn how to draw your own key codes during the course. And this is very powerful because the drawing of the key code itself is one of the most powerful self-healing tools that I've encountered myself and that I also see from my students, because it's simply like the same thing of like what you think is what you create. Yeah, what you feel is what you create. You have to look at it like that when you're drawing a key code, it has a specific way to do it, and you learn exactly how to do that in the academy. So you have to be focused, and it turns into a meditation where you're like actually putting your essence down onto the paper, and then you look at it continuously. So you're looking at the deeper essence of yourself. Yeah, so when you're going through a process, let's say, for example, that you're emotionally out of balance because you lost your job, for example, and you don't know what to do, and you're just all over the place and you're scared and things like that. Yeah, you can start drawing a key code, even though it's difficult to do that. You just commit yourself to that, and the key code will see like, okay, this is the problem, the issue that's going on. But when you're in that meditation and you follow those guidelines of how to draw the key code, the purity of the essence, the truth of the situation comes through and is being put on paper. And you keep looking at that and your eyes take it in, so that your focus is on the purity. And that's how the situation is being cleared in the physical reality. that make sense? So that's how that works, because you look at it and it literally changes your DNA. It changes your your reality by just anchoring in what it is that you specifically need in that moment to go to the next level. And you can draw personal key codes and you can draw collective key codes. Yeah. When you first start drawing them, you will see it will be more personal, because it's more like finding that channel of how does this work and where is it? But after a while, you will feel that confidence, and then you'll see like, okay, my channel is tapped into the diamond consciousness. So whatever process I'm going through, it's also in the collective. And then the code that you are channeling to heal your own process will also heal anybody else who's in that process. So in that way, you can for sure draw your own key codes and make your own course, or do whatever it is. Like Karen, for example, she makes these beautiful murals and art paintings and with the key codes in it. And, you know, it really depends on what you want to do. I also have students who never want to draw a key code ever again because it's just not what they like to do. They don't like drawing, or they don't like, but then they are a musician, for example. I have this beautiful student, Joseph, from half a year ago. He graduated, and he was like, yeah, drawing is just not my strong suit. I just don't really, it's not really what I like doing. But he plays the guitar, and he plays different kinds of instruments, and his music has been upgraded tremendously. And when you listen to his music, you can feel the codes that he's embodying through the music coming into your system, you know. So it's more like during those 6 months in the course, it's for you to learn how to embody it, to also deeper understand what a key code is, because when you're channeling it, you will see more where it comes from and what it does. And then it depends what you want to do afterwards. If you continue with that, you know, if you want to keep working with the codes of the Academy or with your own codes. So yeah, does that answer your question, Susanna? Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. Yeah, and we do like once a month key code sharings with the group, where you show your personal key codes also, whether they're finished or not, because it's very insightful for the self to have that reflection from other people of like what they see in the code, so that you can see for yourself deeper what's going on with yourself also. And the beautiful thing is also, like you said, Anil, you know, everybody's going to go through the processes, everybody's going through the same codes, and they'll all have their different life experiences from where they are, where they're at. But in essence, everybody's going through the same process. See? So when you start drawing your own key codes and when you share them, because you're in a group and it's a ceremony, yeah, it's not just a group coming together, it's a sacred circle, a sacred convergence of people, where the people who are in this circle, they're also all meant to meet each other. You will all have messages for each other. You will all reflect something in each other. And that's the beauty of these circles too. It's a ceremony. So it's everybody who's in that circle is meant to be there. Yeah. And then when you share your personal key codes that you've been drawing, it will also help others to see deeper what they're going through. See? So that's the beauty of, it's towards the end of the circle. It's always so beautiful to see how people are so much more interweaved, and it's like, it feels like family, you know, because you understand each other, you're on the same level, and at the same time, you're sovereign. So it's not like a clingy friendship family thing, but it's more like, you know, like we're all just being our authentic selves, and I respect you for who you are, and I honor you for who you are. And that's just so beautiful to see in that vortex. Yeah. Anybody else has a question? Yeah. Hi.
Hello. Thank you so much. This is amazing. I am seriously resonating with everything that you're saying. It's literally like you're speaking my language, and it feels exactly like the right next level upgrade activation for my life path at this moment in time. And my name is Free Little Bear,
Wow.
and this is Nora. And we're just like completely lit up by everything that your energy and what you're saying and sharing. It's magical and perfect and beautiful.
Thank you.
Really.
Yeah.
And yeah, so just a couple technical questions we thought of was, I think you said there was a key code activation, and then every 3 days there'd be another one, right?
Mhm.
And then you said a 12-day integration in between,
Yeah.
and then you would start a new series. And so does that mean a total of 3 or 4 different sequences?
There's actually 5.
5, okay.
And the last one is like the retreats where there's like 1 key code a day, which is like the ethereal key codes. And the physical key codes is 4 codes where it's 5 days per code because they need longer time. Because as we know, the physical body is always a bit slower than all the other bodies. So it just needs a bit more time to integrate. So yeah, you have like, first you have 11 key codes, 3 days per code. Then you've got 12 days integration. Then you have 12 key codes, 3 days per code, 12 days integration. Then you have 13 key codes, 3 days per code, 12 days integration. Then you've got 5 days, 12 days integration. And then there's the graduation retreat. But in essence, like if you've made it through to the physical diamond embodiment, the 4th sequence, then you're graduated. The last one, the ethereal, is more to like fully realize it and embody it and just, you know, and then it's like a little, probably, I mean, I would love to do the retreat in person on Kauai, but with the whole COVID thing, that wasn't possible, and Kauai is pretty restricted. So maybe now, you know, things are opening up a bit more. So maybe in December, we will be able to meet here, because that was actually the original plan. So until now, I've been doing the retreats online, but if not, if it's possible for everybody to come here, it will be like a 4-day retreat where we do 1 code a day, and then just, you know, a prayer circle, and then just go out into nature and embody that bliss of having been through it. Yeah.
Beautiful. And just a little follow-up, additional technical question.
Yeah.
So how do we all communicate as a group? Is there like a thread like on Telegram or something, or do we do weekly Zoom calls, or is it just shared through email? Or yeah.
It's online. So there's a weekly Zoom call, except for in the integration periods. It's really meant for you to just be in yourself, in your own life, and just realize it. And you can use the integration time also to go through the sequence again if that's what you feel like. Some people do that because they feel like they need to, you know, or they want to integrate it deeper, but it's not necessary. Yeah, it's more to just give you some breathing space, because even if you feel that when you're going through a sequence that not much is happening, on the inside, on the quantum level, there's a lot happening, and there can be this you know, very subtle, deep sense of, oh, I need just some vacation, you know. So that's why the integration time is there. Okay, there's another question. And then so there's in the time that you're going through the codes and that the classes are there, then once a week we meet as a group through Zoom, like this. And then we just share, you know, like it could be that I channel a little bit of like what's going on in the collective in that moment, if there is something. But we just share processes and any questions that you may have, or anything, a process that comes up that you're just like, I don't really know what's happening or how to get out of this, then I channel for you in that moment. And it is so important to share that in the group also, because most of the time, the other students are going through the same thing, but they're not really aware of it. So when you express your concerns or your questions, it will be for the other students like, oh yeah, I'm actually going through the same thing, and they, you know, and it just makes it creates more of an activation for everybody together. So there is one class per week, which is an online video class that's permanent online. You can listen to that class as many times as you want, because it's like a quantum activational class, which means that even if you don't hear all the words and you just play it in the background, it will give like that quantum activation. But you only have to listen to it once. And then one time there's a live online Zoom gathering. Then once a month, there's an extra Zoom gathering to share the key codes. There is also an online forum specifically in the Araina Academy Vortex. It's only accessible for students and for graduates, where you can also share anything. That's also where we post all our personal key codes. And but out of experience, I've seen that the group gatherings are usually enough for people, that they don't really use that forum as much. And then also you get 6 personal sessions with me of like an hour, more or less. And then I will give you a key code reading, and then anything that comes up in your personal story can be addressed as well. Yeah, so those are very powerful. And then you get the recording of that and the key code chart to keep working on your own process. And then what else is there? Is there anything else I'm forgetting? God, I don't think so. Yeah, I think that's it. And you have, yeah, I think I said all of it.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
I just want to thank everybody who's here. I'm so happy to see Nora and AhneYah. Yeah, but I only can say it's so much that you will get. It's the best presents and the best gifts that you can give yourself and humanity, because you can all the time go in it again. I stepped in 2019, and for me it's a daily medicine. And this is the precious thing about this, because those 50 key codes are stepping with you every day again. So sometimes it's difficult, but you can go back all the time. It's an anchor. And every time again, I've done it now 3 times, and in ease and grace, because this is how I feel it. For me, it was never I've never experienced like heavy emotional things, but still it's from after a whole sequence, after the 50 key codes, I'm a different person. I'm much more myself. And this is the most precious gift. I become more and more of myself. And also in everything what I do. And it's not that, it's much more truthful. It's much more secure. There is much more inner protection that I feel. There is much more truthful words that comes through me, and also through sounds. And we have experienced this, Nora. That was so nice. Yeah, it's very humble. It's a very humble process, and it's going on forever. And that's so beautiful. Abundance has come on all levels in my life, and it's more living here in true nature, and it's the small things. I'm thinking about something, and the bananas are laying there, just brought by somebody I don't know. With me, it's all the time very small things that I think with my heart on something, and it will happen. I'm not a person that wants huge things, but it's very small, and at the same time so precious. And so I'm guided, and I feel this. I'm guided through life, through universe, through those codes, the reconnection with everything around me and inside of me is so pure. And I'm so curious to go further on in this path and be an ambassador for AhneYah and her work. Really. Also for me in the beginning, it was also entering in. For me, it was too huge. Also the amount offering, the gift that I would give for this precious medicine. But once you are in, for me, it dissolves. It's also all my idea about money has shifted totally. Because before I lived very basic, and now I live in a lot of abundance, and I'm not more worried about money. It's not that it is there, but I feel so secure. It's more about, yeah, there's nothing can happen to me, and I know that a lot of abundance will come more to me on so much pure levels. So yeah, it's from the moment that there is that call from the heart, yeah, at a certain moment for me it was very clear, and yeah, everything worked out, and then yeah, there was a possibility to step in, and yeah, and now to give it through. Yeah, that's so I feel a lot of happiness now in this moment. Just to see all those beautiful people, and Nora and Anil and Frey and so much more people. Yeah, so yeah, it's the diamond consciousness. It's ready to be spread all over, and yeah. So yeah. When you have questions now, tell them to AhneYah. She will, yeah, it's so precious to work together. That's what I want to say.
Thank you so much, Karen. Yeah, and that's what she said of also of like there's so much happening and moving in the academy, and there's such a big package of what you get to work with, that together with your processes that are going on in your daily life, it maybe even be too much sometimes, you know, because almost every student that I've had, they're like, I want to go through it again just to realize deeper what I actually went through, you know. So it's yeah, you'll definitely have plenty to work with. And I see here from Dagmar a question: how do we get the key codes? Do we get a parcel with 50 plates or cards, because a parcel to Europe may take 5 weeks to arrive? Yes. Or do we get a computer file and print out the codes? So that's what it is. It's all online. The course is all online. It's a document that you can print out, and you can take it to a printer and make a nice book out of it, you know, whatever you feel to do. But yeah, so you get the visual and the prayer and the lyrics of the mantra. You can print those out, and then the audio is online, available for the rest of your life. So once you join, you will always have access to the vortex, you know, unless something really crazy happens, and I don't know what, but you know, usually that should not take place. But you have lifelong access to the classes, the audio, the codes, any upgrades that may take place within the academy too. And I'm also doing, I did that now because there was another space holder, but I'm going to keep doing that. Is like once a month, I will do an open satsang for all the students and all the graduates as well, just to keep that connection alive. You know, so that's what I will also do. So once you're graduated, you're still a part of it. And yeah, and that's really beautiful. And there's also always possibility to co-create with the Garden of Araina, to do something. Like for example, one of the graduates, Sophie Serafina, she graduated in December, and she had been studying also how to make essences, like flower essences, these kind of things. And we came to the co-creation of making essences of the key codes. So she's coming over to Hawaii, and we're going to make a whole series as the key code essences. So, you know, those kind of things are also possible, like anything, because the codes can be combined with anything, really. So if you feel inspired to work with me, or to, you know, co-create something, then I'm always open for that. And, you know, like I want to do, my dream is to spread the codes as much as I can, not for my own, you know, profit or anything, but just really because I know that it helps people. And like something that a student also said that graduated also in December. She's actually my sister, but you know, we were very much like teacher student, like it was more like in the essence of it. And she was like, you know, apart from being my sister and one of my best friends, she really saw the essence of the codes and what it does. And she is, you know, she's been working in as a nurse and as like a caretaker of people who have, you know, like schizophrenia or like those kind of things. And she goes to their houses to help them. So she's like kind of a therapist too in that way. And she has seen many different types of therapy and healing, and you know, of course in the nurse world, like all these different drugs and stuff that they put into people. And she was like, I just had a call with her yesterday, and she was like almost crying, and she said like, the more that I'm embodying these codes, the more that I'm realizing that this is the Holy Grail. She said, this is the Holy Grail, what they're talking about in all the religions. And she says, these codes is the solution for everybody who has, you know, bipolar, depression, schizophrenia, like all these things, because they just need to embody these codes within their system and it resolves itself, you know, because she had it herself too. She was emotionally a little bit manic depressive a little bit, you know, and she had to take antidepressants for it. And she was very scared to start the academy because she was, when she was in a good space, she would like see all these spirits everywhere and colors and auras, and then otherwise she would be really depressed. And she was like, I'm so scared to enter the academy because I don't want to see more, you know. But eventually she stepped in and she stopped her antidepressants. She stopped any kind of chemical drugs that she was taking. And she balanced herself out completely, that she's not like too extreme this or too extreme that anymore. She's really, she can take care of herself and she doesn't need the support anymore of any kind of drugs or therapy or anything. So for her, it's like, because she's like 12 years older than me, so she, for like 45 years, she was in that process. And then she joins the academy for 6 months and it's solved, you know. So for her, it's like, this is the Holy Grail, you see. So yeah, and it's for many things. It can help in that way. Yes.
Well, you're on mute. I think she's gone.
I think Karen, you're.
Yeah, what I went to also tell, and that's what I found the most beautiful, because I also did a lot of courses in the past. Here we are all the time in every sequence, we are balancing the female and the male, and that's when you go through all those cards and codes, it's the real finding that balance and that embodiment, and that's the biggest difference I found also. So huge difference than the natural medicines and so on. This goes much deeper into your whole essence, and then you feel that embodiment on earth and that inspiration of, okay, this is what I'm going, my essence, I will bring it into the world. It can be sound, it can be your profession, any what can be, it will be on a much purer level. People will feel this without doing anything, and it's finding that connection again with my earth and surfer. Yeah, this is the most what I found that gives me the profound connection with everything that is, and especially with myself. It's much more fun to connect with everybody else because that spontaneous being that you are. For me, it was what I all the time was longing for, just to have that playfulness, and that's divine connection. It is there now, and it will grow more and more. So
Yeah, exactly. And that's like, you know, because I see like everybody who comes into the academy, I already see them as masters. you know, because you are. But it's just to break through that final little layer and to fully embody your mastery and to really live it, instead of just knowing the things that you know, but actually to really embody and bring them into the here and now, because that's what the world needs, you know. And it's like, because I have spent so much time, like about 6-7 years in the natural medicines, and going from community to community all over the world and serving with medicine, and like I've seen so many people that are like, they get it, but then they don't embody it, you know, and they keep taking medicines to just pop out and then just be there and la la, I know everything. But then when they live their normal human life, it's the complete opposite, you know. So it hurt my heart so much to see that. And like, also when I, you know, maybe a fun story for you guys is that 3.5 years ago when I arrived on Kauai, you know, this is the first place that I've lived for 3.5 years since I was, you know, a teenager, because I've been traveling all over, and I never lived anywhere longer than maybe a month or two, you know. And so Kauai has kept me anchored. And before I came here, I was still doing a lot of tattoos, and I still had like my suitcase full of like mushrooms and ayahuasca and bufo and kambo and just everything, because here and there I would give ceremonies to people as well. And then I came to Kauai, and I magically made it through the border, even though I came through Japan and they were like opening my suitcase, and I was like, shit, I'm going to jail. But and it was really funny because they literally took everything out of my suitcase, and every little bottle of essential oil, and they smelled it, and every little thing, until there was one thing left in my suitcase. It was a black suitcase, and there was this one very vibrant red shawl that I had wrapped around a box where the bufo was in, and the pipes to smoke the bufo and everything. And I was like, oh shit, now it's there, now it's gonna happen. And then suddenly they're like, you're good, and you can load everything back in, and I can just go. So I was like, hallelujah, you know. That's how divinely protected I was. But then I arrived to Kauai, and I had some sessions booked in with people. I had tattoo sessions booked in, and I had some ceremonies booked in. And as you all know, Kauai is really expensive, so I was like counting on that. I was like, okay, I've got those clients, and I'm gonna make this work on Kauai. You know, I had it all planned out. And then I come here, and then in 1 week time, everything fell apart. All the clients that I had, they had to go somewhere else, or something else happened and they just couldn't do it. It wasn't the right time, and just everything fell away. The retreat that I was going to give, everything fell away. And I think I had about $2,000 on my bank account, which is like nothing here, because rent for a tiny little room is $2,000. And I just, you know, I was just like, okay. And I also didn't have a place to stay, because the friend that I was staying with, she had to move, and she didn't have space in that new home. And so it was just like, and I didn't know anybody here, you know. And then Kauai said to me, because I was meditating on the beach, and Kauai said to me, now I want you to offer your medicines, your natural medicines, back to the ocean, because, you know, it's just, you have to do that. You have to make an offer. And I was like, but that's the only thing that I have to make money, you know, to give ceremonies. And I was like, really? She was like, yeah, it's time to let it go. And it was so strong, the guidance, that I was like, okay, I'll do it. And I went to the beach, and I had all my little boxes, and with all the different medicines, and I put them all at the end of the beach, which was like quite far from the ocean. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do one by one, and do a prayer one by one, and give it back to the earth. And so I start with one, and I go back, and I do my prayer, and I release it. Thank you. And then I turn around, and in some way, the ocean had just come around and took all the other medicines, already gone. So there was no space for doubt or for taking back my decision. You know, it was just done. But then that evening, I got a message from the woman that lived in this house. She was like, hey, I heard you're on island, and I really like your energy. I looked through your website, and I have a room free if you want to for like $1,000. And I was like, okay. So I moved in here, and then I got so much inspiration. Then I got the guidance, the channeling of, I had to stop working with the medicines because, for one, there's so many people who are already working with the medicines who are actually good at it. There's also many people who are not good at, who do it in a bad intention. But there's a lot of people who are really good at it. And if, like my maestra in Peru, for example, she's been doing it her whole life, and she's one of the angels walking this planet, So the channeling was saying, like, you can let go of that because you need to focus fully on the codes, because there's not many people, there's basically nobody who has this information and who can channel it and embody it and put it into a package. And that's what you need to offer, because there's few people here and there who want to break through to that next layer, and there's not many people who can offer them that guidance, you see. So that's why I had to stop working with the medicines, and here and there I have given a little ceremony again, but it's definitely not my focus anymore. And the more that I do work with the codes and with the academy, the more that I really do understand how important it is, because it does ask all of my energy to hold space for this, and it is my passion to do it. It's the only thing that makes me happy is to hold space in this vortex. And yeah, so yeah. Does anybody have some more questions?
Can I have one more question? I would be interested that what do these codes do in the body or with the body?
Yeah, the physical body, you mean?
Yes, or maybe other bodies as well.
Well, like Adam said, like every code you go through, they balance out the masculine, feminine energies. Yeah, so they ground in because every code represents a certain essence, a certain collective essence that is necessary to create harmony in the whole, to create enlightenment in the whole. So when you go through the spiritual diamond embodiment, for example, you work on rebalancing your spiritual body, and anything that is distracting your spiritual body from being its true essence will be released, will be dissolved. Yeah. And whenever a process comes up, it's because your inner being has resistance to letting that go, you see. And that's where the group activations and personal sessions really help you to really break through those patterns of like attaching to something that actually no longer serves you or the whole. And also what happens is that when you because if you really ask like how does a code actually really work, so as I said in the beginning, there's a blueprint behind everything, right? And there's codes of everything that is behind everything, behind this physical reality. Every single thing that you can think of has a code. But as you're here on Earth, you come into the physical realm, which is a much denser frequency. And so certain codes of that higher expansion needed to actually be deactivated for you to be able to be in this denser frequency. So some of the codes, even though they're in your system, you just don't remember them anymore. And then when you look, so the key codes of the Academy are certain of those codes. So when you look at them physically with your eyes, your heart, your soul remembers that essence. So it reactivates that code and it starts sparkling and turning again. See? And then as it does that, it moves other things within you. And that's how insights and realizations start coming through. And with those insights and realizations, you start making certain decisions, or you start saying different things, behaving in a different way, seeing things differently. And because of that, your reality starts changing, because your reality is the effect of your inner vibrations. See? So that's why it's called more like quantum activations, because it's not literally gonna change something from the outside inward, it's going from the inside outward. And so when it comes to your physical body, whether you're going through the spiritual, the emotional, the mental, the physical, or the ethereal sequence, it's all going to have an effect on your physical body, because your physical body is the expression, is the embodiment, the manifestation of your inner blueprint. Yeah. And it's also, if you look to Chinese medicine, for example, they also do the facial, how they can see in your face which kind of diseases that you have or something, you know, of this. Yeah. So it's the same thing, like the more balanced you are in your energetic bodies, the more your physical body will straighten itself out. You see? And yeah, it's also like with Karen, it was also like that. Like when she started the academy, she was like, Breatharian, that's so far from me, and I don't even wanna, you know. And now she fully understands that, and her body actually naturally feels better doing water fasts or coconut water fasts, or like, and she just feels so much more vibrant, because the codes do so much in your metaphysical field, and it changes your physical DNA, through which you will become more healthy on all levels, also physically. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
And it all goes very smoothly. At a certain moment, you start to eat less, and it's not from it's an experience, because we will ignite this with each other. But at a certain moment, you will feel and taste and smell the purity of everything what is. Also about thoughts, about food patterns, of everything, and your body recognize this, and you start to live that very pure life, or you attract these, and yeah, it's that clarity that will come on so many levels, and yeah, that makes it also very interesting, because we will see much more through time, and yeah, then it's also a responsibility of finding that discern wisdom in this, from how furthermore live our life on a way that resonates really good with the level of awareness that you have in that moment in time. And that's the beauty, because it's so unknown, but it's so much better. So yeah, and that's the beauty of this, because it will never be the same. It will all the time becomes better and more you. And yeah, and in this way we are, that's light, if you can say this, it's not that light, but yeah, you will feel that everything makes more sense also. So yeah, it's nice. Yeah, I'm so grateful for this medicine.
Thank you, Karen. And yeah, it's so beautiful what she says, like you and that's the essence of being breatharian also. It's like you become so full of your essence of the all, that you literally don't feel hungry anymore. Because what is hunger? Hunger is that there's blind spots inside of yourself that your spirit wants to fill up. And then you think, oh, food, that's what fills me up, or relationships, or whatever, you know, it's like that's what fills me up. But the more you become more fully embodied in your sovereignty, the less you need anything. You just sit somewhere and you feel connected to all that is. So it doesn't, and then you have the choice, you know, then food becomes an experience rather than it's something that you need to survive, you know. Same with relationships, you know, it's more like, oh, this is an experience to be in a relationship with this person, rather than I need this person to feel love or anything like that, you know. So yeah. So yeah, we are starting a circle the 1st of July. In essence, you have time until 30th of June to decide if you want to join or not. But I would recommend to, at least in the next 2 weeks, to decide, because then you have a bit of time to just already enter the vortex and just settle in a little bit and just, you know, print your documents and everything so that you can start on the 1st, because the 1st is when you start your first key code. See? So in essence, I can allow people in until the 30th, but then it will just be for you a little bit difficult to like all at once in one day, and then you have to see end the class and download your documents and do all of that, you know. So it may be nice for you to have like a week at least to prepare yourself a little bit. And also for me, like, because when we do the Zoom classes, I like to do it on times that everybody can, because of course it's people from different places in the world, so different time zones, and I like to do the Zoom call on a time that everybody can be there on that time, because it is important to be there. It's kind of part of the activation to actually be in every group activation. If you can't be there once or twice or 3 times, that's fine. Then just, you know, it's also important to let me know through a personal message or through, there will be like a group, WhatsApp group with all the students. So if there's like, oh, you know, I have to work late or my internet is down or whatever, then I can't show up, you know, then that's fine. You can always let me know. But it will be better for you, for your process also, to be there all the time. So in that sense, like if everybody would join at least a week before the circle starts, then I can put the calendar in order and be like, okay, that's the day that we do the online group gatherings, you see. And then I will ask everybody individually, like, what is your best time? Which days can you really not come online? What are the time zones that you can, you know, the hours that you can, and then I will puzzle and figure it out. So yeah, that's in that way I really want to work with everybody to make it as smooth as possible. Yeah. Any more questions, Nora? Yes.
Hi. How long daily shall we be sitting with, viewing and meditating on the codes and the mantra and the prayers?
That is completely up to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm aware now of my linear mind, where I was thinking, oh, if I stare at the code for 4 hours, it's gonna be more potent than looking at it for 4 minutes.
Yeah.
I recognize that in the quantum it can be instant.
Yes, exactly. But that's what I said earlier. It's like it's instantly, but then there's all these conditionings of our mind that it's instant and then you block it off again, you know.
Yeah.
So strong, and you will feel that for yourself, that with some codes you will feel attracted with your heart, just I want to keep listening to it, I want to keep listening, you know, because you need that. And then with another code you'll be like, oh, listen to it once and I'm done, you know. And it's really up to you. I had this student once, and that was so beautiful. When I heard that she did that, she would take the mantra, the universal mantra, and then put it on repeat silently as she was sleeping. And then she would dream about the code the whole night long, you know, and get all the insights and stuff. And so that's also something that you can do. Like if you have no time, for example, during a day, or you're super busy, you can do that at night, for example. Or I had a student once who, when he drove to work on his motorbike, he would like just put the ears on, and as he was driving he would listen to the prayers on repeat, you know. Or like, So it really, you don't have, it's the best thing to be in meditative states and to have silence and to have your own space as you're listening to them. But it's not necessary, because again, it's quantum. It can be anywhere. It happens at any time. It doesn't matter, because everything is an illusion anyway.
Yeah.
So it's completely up to you, and you can you know, because the intention behind the academy is for you personally to come into your authentic, sovereign self-empowerment. And that's why I built it up in that way. Like, here's the course, here's the calendar, but do with it as you wish. For you to activate that authenticity and to play with it. And, you know, maybe you print out the codes 10 times and hang them all around in your house, or maybe not, you know, whatever you feel to do with it. Yeah. It's also something that comes to mind now. When it comes about printing out the codes and the prayers and stuff, that I've had it a couple of times that people then, when friends come over, then they see it and they start reading it, to kind of keep it secret, because of, you know, yeah, because otherwise it just, I've had it with people that they see the codes and then they get, on a subtle level that you maybe don't really see it, on a subtle level, things start changing, and then they don't have the space holding to actually go through it. That's why it's like 6 months in a sacred vortex within a group, and we're all together and we're all honoring the space. We're all there, every group activation, you know, on time. And like, because it is, even though if you may feel like nothing's really happening, a lot is actually happening. And you're very fragile and vulnerable as you go through the process. See? So, yeah. And not to make it scary or something, like it's not, but it's, yeah, it's important to yeah, it's like, you know, if you've done an ayahuasca ceremony, it's like the same thing. You only do that in a circle with someone who holds the space. And being in this 6 months, it's kind of similar, you know, you're just, for 6 months you're in a ceremony, and you need to, yeah, honor that within yourself. And yeah. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
It does. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So I guess, unless there's more questions, if you're interested, then you can still talk to me personal about it. Have a free consult. Yeah. You can, I think some of you already know where you can find the document. Yeah. And in that document is a link where you can then book a personal consult with me, and then we can just arrange everything. In any way, I think that's best, to just still have that little personal consult, and then just arrange all the logistics and practical and whatever, you know. And so, yeah, I would be honored to have any of you here present in the circle in July, and I'm just so much looking forward to it. And especially also with everything that's happening on the planet right now, it's just so important, for, even though it's just one little group, like that already brings so much anchor and light into what the collective needs right now, you know. So yeah, it's a very needed thing. Oh, you guys are so cute. Beautiful. So unless there's any more questions, no, all good. And I thank you all so much for being here, and looking forward to see you all again. And have a beautiful day, beautiful nights, wherever you are. Many blessings. Aloha.